Welcome to the Moments That Matter podcast. I am your host, Laura Escamilla.
And I am your co-host, Isaac Escamilla.
And today we have a special friend with us. Her name is Karina Lopez. And we have known Karina a very long time in her family. She grew up with our daughter, Skylar. And we're talking to her today to include the student perspective and our young professionals. Welcome, Karina. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you guys for having me.
So the purpose of these episodes are to give parents and students an idea of what your path was like and what it takes to become someone in your field, in case there's students out there who are interested in it, what kind of education it took, and a little bit about your undergrad, where you went to school, how you liked it, just to give the audience a perspective of different universities and different careers. So we're going to start with that. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself right now? Where are you working and what you're doing?
Okay. Currently, I'm a speech language pathology assistant. So there's a difference, right? So a pathologist is the one that does the evaluations, just does like the basic forms and everything, works with insurances. Me as an assistant, I actually am the one that provides the treatment. So right now I'm working at Total Rehab Kids. That's actually where I started my career, my very first year out of school. So they were able to give me a first position there in Harlingen. I believe like the first 3 weeks after I graduated, I was able to work there for them. And they showed me the way I was just barely like straight out of school. So I got to learn a lot with that company. But now that's where I'm at still. It's a clinical kind of environment, right? I guess you could say. And we work with peds, so kids anywhere from 6 months all the way up to the years of 21 years of age.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. So let's backtrack a little bit and how we got here. So you are the oldest of 4 children. Like I mentioned before, we've known you and your family a very long time. The Lopez's amazing family. And can you tell us a little bit about your experience leaving to college and what that was like being the oldest, the first among your siblings to do that?
So actually, I'm first generation. So my parents didn't go to school. So everything was brand new. When it came to literally everything, I think I was the guinea pig. They like to tease me and say, you're the guinea pig.
It's a case for, I think, all the first child.
Yeah.
They're just kind of trying it out.
So when it came to picking out schools, well, we attended the FAFSA meetings together. That was one thing that we had to really be serious about. My parents have always been very transparent with us about financing, money, things like that, things that we can and probably can't do. I was blessed to have a good support system in that sense. My parents said, go wherever you want, study whatever you want, we'll figure it out, right? So then, okay, there's me applying to all the schools I wanted to apply to, knowing what I wanted to be as a speech therapy assistant or speech therapist at the time. There's not a lot of schools that offer what I want to do. And so a lot of the schools that do, there's only like a few, I would say like maybe 5 or 6 true, like they take you out all through your high school or your 4 years of university.
Right.
And then with Sharyland also, they allow for dual enrollment courses. So there was also that where I had to look like who's going to accept all my courses, all my classes that I've been taking, right? Because that's money saved in my parents' pocket, the way that I had to look at it.
That's a very nice consideration.
Thank you. Anyways, so looking into all that, Kingsville kept popping up. And I was, Kingsville, it's so close. My dad was like, hey, UTRGV has what you want to study. I was like, Dad, that's 5 minutes down the road where I live. That's way too close. Like, I need the college experience.
Definitely.
So it was either Texas State, and they had just opened a program for communication sciences and disorders in Round Rock. So I was like, well, we've been there before. Tuition numbers came back, and I was just like, oh, that's a little high. So like you said, oldest of 4, right after me is Godla. So she graduated a year right after me. So I'm like, okay, so I know she's probably going to go to school. Like, how fair is it going to be that, well, I'm going to get a little bit more financial aid money? That's what we anticipated because I'm first gen, right? So then I was like, okay, let's try to be fair, get your full college experience. You know, like Kingsville is not too far. If I ever need to come home or mom and dad ever want to come up, like it's only an 1.5 hour drive. So nothing too bad. So it ended up being Kingsville. And actually, I really liked it. They have a really good program, really great professors. So yeah, good choice.
I had a really great experience. I did grad school at Kingsville.
Okay, cool.
So I looked at the program here at UTRGV, and I looked at the program there. And the one at Kingsville aligned very well with the one at Texas A&M that my friends had done. It was all the way down.
It was kind of weird for me to see kids transfer from like big schools. Like we had grad program, people leveling out into some of my classes when I got to my senior year of college that were leveling out with us, and they were coming from Baylor, they were coming from UT, they were coming from UT Dallas. And I was just like, all these schools that I was looking at, and I was like, wow, they're like, why Kingsville? And they're like, because of the ratio. Like everybody really wanted to be in that smaller ratio.
We have a friend of ours who is a doctor, but he's this title, biological something.
He's a science.
Yeah, some sort of research. So he went to UT for undergrad and he did his master's at A&M-Kingsville. He came back here because of the cost and the ratio. And that's the greatest thing he talks about going into medical school, that he found that students, his peers that came from schools that those student to teacher ratio was smaller than where he came from at UT, they had way more advantages because they could call a professor. They had relationships with people and
Yeah, to this
got a
day,
lot
I'm
more
kind
help.
of blessed. Like, if I ever have like a reference or anything I need, I
Right.
have a few professors that just like text them, hey, need a reference, or hey, be looking out for this email. And they're actually really good at keeping up with me and stuff like that. So I think that's pretty cool. I don't even have some of that relationship with my high school teachers, but
Right.
for college, I think that was amazing.
I had a very similar experience. Yeah, for Dr. Green that was in charge of the program. She was great. In fact, when I was graduating, she asked me to help out and do some summer classes.
Okay, cool.
Just, for PD for teachers in that area, which was nice.
It's really refreshing too. I feel like people always say, oh, professors, right? What we see on TV is just like a big auditorium and all these students and you're just a face. But when you have that one-on-one relationship, I honestly feel like it's a lot better for us as students. And I feel like it humanizes these professors, right? That have these big titles and have all these documentations and patients and all this stuff behind them, right? All this research. And you just wait, at the end of the day, like, you're human.
Yes.
And it's cool to have that relationship with them.
Right. And they had a journey. And so A&M-Kingsville, we decided cost, closest to home, 2 hours for normal people, an hour and a half for Karina.
Yeah, an hour and a half.
Drive. But so close to home, but you were still away.
Yes.
Did you experience any challenges? How hard was that? I know your family's very close.
Yeah, we're really close. And when I say really close, like it was weird not to hear my siblings or some type of chatter. So it was good. Being the oldest, you're like venture off, right? But it's lonely knowing the fact like all my life of all of my memories are just me and my siblings. But it was good. We thank God for FaceTime. Thank God for phone calls. And like I said, it wasn't too far. I think literally the second week, we had something going on. My dad's like, you're coming home, right? And I was like, Dad, you just dropped me off. But okay. So, it was easy, pretty flexible. But in terms of challenges, I would just say navigating a new schedule in terms of figuring out more or less how to prioritize time, right? Because I've always been the type, going back to high school, I was an athlete, right? So I was used to having a strict schedule of people telling me what to do,
where to be,
where to go.
Be.
Yeah, exactly. What to wear even, and just like things like that. So everything would go into college, this is all on me. So that was cool in the sense of I had liberty, I had like independence and figuring all that stuff out. But at the same time, what worked, what didn't work.
And nobody's holding you accountable.
And nobody's holding me accountable,
Right.
which is okay. I was used to that. My parents were really good about, you know what you got to do, get it done, right? Growing up, I had that more or less structure, but going into college, I was like, whoa,
I could not go, and it doesn't. Right.
No one's going to know.
No one's going to know. And I was like, so mind you, like, let's backtrack a little bit. Like, I graduated high school with perfect attendance since pre-K.
Wow.
Yeah,
you
so
were one of that small list. That's a very small
it's
list.
a very small. And you would think like I would get something like some districts give a card. No, I just got like a little plaque. That's cool. But
an acknowledgement at least.
Yeah, but like going back, so like thinking about that, like if I was sick, I didn't have to go to school. Like I didn't even skip class until maybe my junior, and that's because of COVID. Like I didn't have to go into class, like it was optional. Yeah, a different time. But so that was one thing, trying to prioritize time management, trying to figure out, hey, like you have all this free time, what can you do with it to still be involved in school? So it wasn't just so much study, because that's the picture everybody paints. And I wasn't just about party either. I'm going to be very honest. I didn't start going out to clubs or out to bars or anything like that till I was already a junior, going to be graduating soon. Like knowing the fact that, hey, everything I did was for like what I needed to do, get out.
To that point,
yeah.
Right.
So
after you took care of business.
So the challenges were just mainly time management, trying to figure out more or less study. How can I study? And it's one of those things like prioritizing time, like social time as well. And also not trying to miss home too much.
Yeah. So looking back, would you choose Kingsville again, do you think? It gave you the experience you were hoping for?
Knowing what I know now, in terms of curriculum, yes. I think the professors there were really good. They know their stuff. Kingsville's always actually pretty good at having its own clinical program, right? So the grad students are actually there with people resident within the town. They're providing services. Basically what I do with my job now as an assistant.
Wow.
So that was great as like coming in, if I were with anticipations of, I want to be a graduate student, I want to be an SLP, right? So that was one thing that I really liked, that kind of motivated you to do more than just, settle for less, right?
Sure.
But as an assistant, looking at the curriculum, I think it was so much based, like I said, towards the SLP. So we didn't get like a lot, and I don't know if maybe COVID had to do with it too, but we didn't get a lot of hands-on instruction in terms of how do you talk to a kid? Right. How do you engage with somebody that has maybe a behavior disorder or has autism, right? We would watch observations on TV, right?
Sure.
It's just, okay, something I could do by myself, right? But nothing hands-on. And hey, this is how you talk to them. This is how you prioritize a session. Hey, you know what? You have these goals you need to target. It's not working. Let's try to figure something else out. How do you do that on the spot? because you have 30-minute sessions,
Mhm.
right? So you have to be creative in what you do and like what you might want to do. Kids are going to be surprised, right? They're going to have their days. They're human. So it's one of those things where it's just like we didn't get taught how to engage with people or different ages and stuff like that. There's kids that don't have, or students that didn't have siblings. I had one of my best friends there in college. She was an only child. She's like, how do you talk to kids? How do you engage with other people? So everything that you did here in session, how do you relay that to parents without just being textbook savvy, right?
Right.
Instead of just like normal people were.
Right.
A bedside manner. Also.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
So are there programs or do you have colleagues who went to different schools that had that experience, do you think?
Honestly, I think it's the general thing I've gotten from people. The majority of my coworkers actually went to Kingsville and all different generations, I should say.
Right.
I'm actually one of the youngest assistants, so it's cool to hear what they had, what they went through at the same university I went to, but it stayed the same. A few people that I know went here at UTRGV. Shout out to Miss Bisocacci. I know she was one of the professors there as well. She tried getting me to go to UTRGV for my master's, but I was just like, oh, let's hold off a little bit. But yeah, so she was telling me all, when I explained like what Kingsville was, she was like, we try to do things a little different, right? But I didn't get to see anything firsthand, right? And a lot of my friends that did go to UTRGV that started UTRGV, they ended up leaving for the fact of just being like, I just want to get out of the valley. And once we got into depth more of those classes, I don't know more or less,
What that
right?
looked
Yeah,
like.
what it looked like.
Okay, we graduate and we do come back to UTRGV for graduate school. What was that decision based on and what did that look like for you?
Like I said, my first year, I was really blessed working in Harlingen with total rehab kids. And they did a really good job of showing me the clinical side. There's
Yes.
multiple sides to speech therapy than more than just like school or this clinic that we see, right? There's
Right.
hospitals. But I wanted to do more. I was like, okay, so what's something that you can do, right? That you're so passionate about and bring it back to the valley, right? So my master is actually in special education. So nothing to do with speech therapy. So special education is more school-based. And so at the time I was very interested. I'm still debating if I want to finish a teaching certification or go that route or try to go into like educational diagnostician.
Right.
But try to be the voice for them, try to figure out what it is that makes them tick.
Yes.
And let's figure out what makes you and bring that into the classroom or bring that in
Right.
to make you blossom, right? To be a better person,
To
a
find
better
your
individual.
strength and
Yeah,
work on
absolutely.
that, right?
So it's just more than that. So that's what led me to follow a path towards my master's. But I don't know. It was just one of those things like I've always known that I love school and I want to keep learning and
Yeah.
I want to keep knowing more and trying to bring that knowledge and share it with somebody else that might not know, might not have the opportunity to learn.
That's why I think there's a lot of professions that you must go to in graduate school, but just for personal growth. And I guess maybe I'm biased because I did the same. I'm working on my doctorate now, but it's all for my own personal growth. There's nobody
Right.
telling me I need to do this, but I want to know more and I want to be an expert in my field. So I totally understand that. But you feel like that benefits you now as the
Absolutely.
special
Yeah.
education
So
side?
it's funny, like everybody walks by. So Masters of Education, like the letters are MED. So people automatically assume like medicine.
Right.
And so they're like, oh, we want her as a therapist. She's like a doctor. And I'm like,
Right
no,
now.
actually, no. But it's really cool to have that information, I guess, additional learning right underneath, tucked in my belt. It's one of those tools. I got to learn ABA therapy, a little bit and know about ABA therapy, more in depth about autism, right? I got to learn how to strategize and how to organize activities based surrounding like a specific disorder. I'm going to bring it into my session. It's like classroom management, but I'm going to use it more towards
For
like
your therapy sessions,
management.
right.
Yeah. And if you were to ever come into my room, and a lot of parents say, hey, within a week or two, my kids are structured. My kid was like up and down and they weren't able to sit down. Now let's give them a few sessions of just straight no. We're going to do our work and you're here to work. You're not here to play. We're going to have
Yeah.
that positive reinforcement towards the end, but you're going to work up to it. So it's just those things that I learned with my master's, honestly, that has helped me keep my
The
kids structured.
education
Yeah.
side.
So it
And-
sounds like it complemented what you were doing very well already, right? So you felt
Yeah.
like maybe perhaps your approach to the students wasn't shown to you in school the very first time around, but now that you've added this other layer,
Edge component, you
Yeah.
added that
That-
kind of thing you
yeah.
were missing.
yeah,
That and two, like I was also given an opportunity. Like I said, I'm really close to my professors, and he wasn't even a speech professor.
Yeah.
Dr. Oblad, he is a psych professor.
Okay.
And so that's one of my minors in psych. So we had to take psych classes as well. But I followed his curriculum or what classes he taught because he did a lot of early child development. He did a lot of parent development as well, or like adult development, right?
Yes.
Kind of things like that, cognitive delays and stuff like that. So that was interesting, but he actually helped me get a job at the CYC there on campus at Tamuk, basically a child early development center.
Mhm.
So I was actually a student worker, kind of like a daycare, right? If you can
Yeah.
think about it, but it's curriculum based.
yes.
So starting from infants, I think they did 3 months all the way up to kids that are like 5 years of age.
Wow.
So because of him, I got the experience to engage with kids, learn one-on-one and kind of just observe kids, their natural nature. and just bring that into how to deal with them when it came time for me and my treatments.
Yeah. What a great opportunity.
Yeah,
That's
it was
super
really
nice.
cool. It just fell into my lap. We had to do volunteer hours. I don't know if it was his class or one of the CSDO classes, but he actually helped me. He's like, hey, like you kind of have a knack for this. Like they always look for student workers. And it was one of those things, hey, if I can get a little more extra money to, like that's great. It was one of those things. So I was like, yeah, why not?
Everybody wins.
Yeah.
Everybody wins.
Yeah, it sounds like A&M-Kingsville gave you a great experience overall, not just your education, but the opportunities to learn and grow
They did.
beyond that.
Yeah, they did.
That's awesome. So at UTRGV, would you do that again? Would you go back to that program? Do you feel like you gained what you needed from there?
I did.
And I imagine you lived at home or you were here.
So it's weird. Okay.
Okay.
No, I didn't. Actually, okay. So like I said, special ed, I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do, right? So I was thinking educational diagnostician. I was thinking teacher, sped teacher. So I was like, I still have to work. So I have to be an assistant. I still have to work while I'm getting my master's. So I was looking into the school systems here, trying to get myself into the school system.
Right.
But it was hard. There's not a lot of opportunities as assistants to get into these districts here in the Valley. There's not really a need for us here, like in school districts.
Right. It's just not structured that way.
Yeah, and the population isn't as big as you would think,
Okay.
right? Not as many kids, or your caseload's not as big as it needs to be
Understood.
for the need. So I went all the way to San Antonio. I moved to San Antonio for a whole year, and I actually would think like I'd stay here because I'm going to UTRGV. No.
Right.
I went to San Antonio to be at a school to where I was learning things. Like I said, my master's was everything online.
Right.
It was a 10-month course. So I was in school learning things I needed to learn as a teacher or sped, right, student,
Yes.
with the master's student, but with the title of it as an assistant. So things like your ARD meetings, right? It's where you discuss your IEP goals for the student. And my base or coming into it was a speech eyes, right? Like coming in from that voice perspective, but sitting there listening to the different teachers, different resources available. That's where I grasped all that information that kind of helped me relay what I was learning paper-wise, like
Yes.
on textbooks, but learning it in real life situations. So I had to put myself in that situation. And I literally told my parents, like, look, I know I'm going to be far. I know that it's not something that you would have assumed that I would be doing, like with coming to school so close, like literally 5 minutes down the road. But this is an online program. So that gives me the freedom to work and do anything that I need to do. I was like, and this is what I need to do in order to fully grasp the concepts of what I'm learning. Because I'm a very hands-on visual learner. I'm not so much I never really had to study. I'm not going to lie to you. I was literally telling my coworkers, yeah, I could just sit in a classroom and just like listen.
Observe it.
And if I had a question, I would raise my hand, write down what my question was, and then I remember exactly what we were talking about.
Nice.
That for me, learning, reading, if everything was online, I was like, okay, shoot, like how am I going to do this? You need to put yourself in a situation where you're grasping the information that you're reading and applying it in real life.
Yes.
So that was an adjustment.
That was an adjustment for sure.
That whole experience gave you context to your text,
absolutely.
essentially.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. So Skylar also lives in San Antonio. She did her MBA through UTRGV as well, all online. So she just came here for graduation. Like she had never.
Literally, same.
Yeah.
I was like, I have no idea who
And she
any of
didn't
you
even
guys
set
are.
foot on campus because it was at the stadium, at
Or
the
the
arena.
arena.
Yeah, I can't even tell you my professors look like. I'm going to be very honest.
Yeah. And that's one thing about the doctorate program that I'm in, that you have to go to a residency in person. That we did. I did in July, and I got to one-on-one meet my professors because it's all online and like face-to-face. So that was like a really great aspect of that. I wish like online programs had that aspect, even a weekend or something. Just to,
I wish they would even do a Zoom call every now and then. Hey, like, how are y'all doing in this assignment? Like, just a touch base, because everything was like discussion boards. Everything was just on your own
discussion
time.
questions.
Me too. Like, I just, you know what? Let me write my discussion. Why do I got to reply to two other people?
Have to reply to two people.
I'm just like, hey, that was so great. Was it? Did you really read it?
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Every week.
Every week. FaceTime would go a long way.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we do have that component where we do group projects. You're assigned to this person. They're going to review your work, and you talk to them.
Let's collaborate a little bit more, right?
You do FaceTime. And so when I went to the residency, I did recognize some people that I had been paired up with because we had that interaction. So I get that.
And now you're friends.
We're friends.
Yeah, I had no idea any of my class what they look like. And nobody even really put their profile in. Like, what do you look like? Who am I talking to?
I think Skylar's similar thing. Like, no idea. She worked in groups with people, but there was no face to put with it. So tell me a little bit about your day. You've mentioned you're working with youth, and you have a room that you're going into. But what does that day to day look like? You work 9 to 7. Those are really long hours.
Yeah, they are.
But I imagine it's availability for people to come in.
Absolutely, yeah. So My day to day, and it's so crazy because I have no idea how I survive at the end of it. Like I'm literally done by the end of the day. But it's a very high energy field, and I'm working with kids especially. You're gonna have to feed off of their energy, or you have to provide the energy that they need to be at. And so think about it. Like my day starts at 9 a.m. First patient of the day. They could have a great session or they could have a really bad session, but you have to keep up that pep up energy. I think that's
Yes.
where cheerleading comes in.
Yes.
Like that energizer, right?
trained for
Energizer
this.
bunny.
Shout
Yeah,
out
yeah, yeah.
to church.
Shout out to Marisa Briseño.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, but honestly, like it's one of those things where I have to give the same energy to every kid because how fair is it that even if I'm having a bad day, like they're having the best day of their life and they finally can say more or they can
Right.
say, I want, or they can tell me no. How amazing is that for them? And if I'm just being like,
If
oh,
you're
that
you're
was
having a
great.
day.
Yeah. If I'm having a bad day and I bring that in. So my day is very energy based. It's fun. I love
So
what
I
I
can
do.
see how at the end of the day your battery
Social battery is
is
low.
drained.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're doing great here.
Oh,
So
thank you. Thank you. I'm like off caffeine. So
Yeah.
Oh no.
I'm on it. I'm trying to take it.
no, I'm trying to get off of it so bad.
So all day long, this 30-minute sessions.
Yes,
you
we
go
have 30-minute sessions.
session.
Every kid varies, right? Depending on their disorder, depending on their age range, depending on their development, where they stand. So there's some kids that can be like 3 goals, right? And that can be like an expressive goal. So things of just talking like regular sentences, right? Carrying a conversation.
Mhm.
Or it could have kids that have right? Articulation. So things like where they might not be able to produce your R's or your L's, your speech sounds, we call those phonemes, right? So that's another thing. Or I might have kids that have fluency delay or disabilities. So it's stuttering. And I always stutter when I think about my fluency kids because I'm emulating you. But yeah, so things like that. So my day can vary. I have kids of all ages. I have kids of all disorders, diagnoses, right? Undiagnosed.
So that just changes
It
every
changes
single moment to moment
everything.
that you
Yeah,
have to do.
it changes everything. And my my supervisor, Denise, she's really good about communicating with me, letting me know, hey, where does this kid stand? Where's the progress on them? How are they doing? What do we need to make an adjustment? And
Right.
we have that really great conversation of communication. Our kids get evaluated every 6 months.
So
right,
how
so-
often do you see a child? Every week?
So
multiple
it
times
depends
a
on
week?
insurance and also depends on parents. So there's a lot of kids. Some of our kids on my caseload actually don't have insurance, so they don't, or insurance doesn't
Cover what you're
doesn't
doing.
think speech is a necessity, right? So they don't get it qualified. So parents are paying out of pocket. I don't know the numbers, right? But I can imagine it's costly.
Right.
So just depending, I can see a kid once a week, or I can see usually it's two times a week. So let's think about 30 minutes to an hour a week, just give or take.
And how long do you stay with one of your clients?
So that's one thing that I'm blessed. My patients are very consistent in attendance.
Great.
So on a weekly basis, it can just be, I see them, let me see, like 8 times a week. So
Okay.
it just depends, or 8 times, sorry, a month. But it just depends. But I can be with them in a whole authorization period, which is 6 months. So I
Wow.
can be with them a full 6 months, or I mean, if they have to renew, I can be with the kids. I've already been there a year and a couple months.
Yes.
So I've had kids since the very beginning that I've been there, and they're still with me.
Mhm.
So it just depends. And sometimes we have to change kiddos or to different therapists depending on their needs, or how maybe we get along, maybe we don't get along, or maybe I won't.
You don't have the rapport with them
Yes.
that they need. That's very objective, right? It's nerve-wracking, I imagine.
It's hard. And
Yeah.
then it's harder too. So a lot of the times parents aren't in my session, but I have 3 or 4 that they're very consistent and I don't mind them I don't ever turn a parent away. I always allow them to come in to teach them because they're going to learn more from mom and dad than they're going to learn from me, a stranger.
Or mom and dad can pick up.
Exactly. Yeah.
techniques.
So it's called home
Reinforce.
education. Yeah. So parent
Yeah.
education is, I really try to provide parent education as much as I can. So it's one of those things where I have a parent, I always allow them in and I always assess what's going on and I tell them, hey, this is what we're going to work on. Let's say, hey, so-and-so today we're going to be working on requesting, and they have total communication goal. And total communication is not just verbal, right? We can use gestures, we can use picture cards, we
Okay.
can use an AAC device, right? It can be anything.
Right.
And so I'm teaching parents things that I'm doing in session. Hey, you know what? Today he did really good on gestures, right? So we're going to work on those gestures and, we're going to work on more. So yeah, he's going to give me the more sign, but maybe hand over hand is going to help him a little bit more. So I'm doing hand over hand today. Maybe we can incorporate that at home, but give him that visualization when you want more. So just things like that where I'm educating parents as I go. So those sessions are a little bit more draining because we always say, I think I'm giving like 120% more than I need to be.
Yeah.
But you're showing off in terms of it's going to better the kid. It's
Definitely.
not just going
Do
to
facial expressions count? Because Isaac says I say a lot with my face.
They do. So there's actually a couple kids I have goals. So majority of them, usually it's like the social, right? Social type of goals. So a lot of my autism kids, they don't have facial expressions. They don't know how to express their emotions. They don't know what it feels like, how to express what they're
What they're
feeling
feeling.
inside.
Okay.
Yeah. So facial expressions, body movements, gestures, anything like that. Like I get up and I have dance parties with my kids because that's what gets them going and gets them happy. And I can express, hey, you're feeling happy. Or like that, if you're happy in what song, when you're
Yeah.
mad, let's stomp our feet and we're going to show our faces, scrunch up our face and we're mad.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
things like
gosh,
that.
that
Yeah.
song is so
Yeah, all the
Yeah,
nursery
yeah.
songs, Miss Rachel, she's
Yeah.
my best friend.
That's so great.
So would you suggest for somebody entering your field or interested in your field, taking a look at something like you did, doing an education master's or maybe like a minor or something, other aspect to help that side of working with children?
So the good thing about what we do, every 2 years we have to get, they're called CEU courses, right? So like education courses.
Sure.
You don't have to get that extra degree,
But you felt it helped you.
but it helped a lot. And there's some coworkers and colleagues throughout my different work settings that have actually learned from me, right, through my experiences. I'm just like, when I take back when I started, I was 22 years old. So their experiences, yes, they all went to Kingsville, right? They all had the same professors, group of professors, crazy like 10-year differences,
Yeah.
but they had the same learning textbooks.
Yes.
But that experience hands-on, they didn't get those opportunities. So we would learn things, or hey, new findings, new research. How did you implement that into your current things that you're learning or things that you're doing in your room, in your sessions? So yes, I would say if you have the opportunity to, yes, go do it.
Take
Go
advantage.
take as many courses as you want. Try to take as many, I would say not classes, but I would say like in terms of trainings, right? Let's try to take those trainings if you can. Those help. It really does help.
Would you have any advice for somebody who wants to do the work you're doing? Something you didn't do?
Something you didn't know that you know now that you could tell somebody.
Oh, let me think.
You're like, I did everything perfect.
I'm like, no, I'm a golden child. No, actually, if I could, I would just tell them, be prepared. This isn't an easy field. It was funny in Kingsville, they always said the hardest program was civil engineering, and second to that was the CSDO program. So our program is very competitive in terms of grad school. I think they only take 32 students.
Small
right?
cohort.
Yeah.
Small.
And we're a small university, I think, in comparison to like all your big powerhouses, but good university. And so be prepared that you're not going to be the smartest kid in the room. And so people learn at different stages and different ways. So know that coming into it, knowing what you're going to study, kind of thing like that. If you know you're the type that you don't need to pick up a book, then it's okay. But if you're the type that you need word for word, written down, highlighted, and whatever jotted in your journal, okay. But figure out what works for you in terms of CSDO, because it's a lot. It's a lot of things thrown at you, a lot of expectations. It's a lot of information that you have to grasp, and not only grasp it, but know it, because one day you're going to be the person, you're going to be the teacher, I say, quote unquote teacher, because you're going to be teaching parents, and not just parents, you're going to be teaching caregivers, you're going to be teaching the kid, you're going to be
Right.
teaching everybody around you. You have to relay information. And we have to talk about different things like towards anatomy. We have to talk about cognitive things. We have to talk about neurological aspects and just behaviors and all. You have to know all these different kind of things that kind of just pertain to one person.
So I
Right.
would say also, if just from you sharing your experiences, if somebody wants to enter this field and feels like they're not a people person because you are an extrovert, you have always been an extrovert, a cheerleader in your youth, and you've always been that type of person to communicate with others. I saw you when you were younger and as an adult, and I feel as an adult, you're way more talkative than you were when you were younger,
Yeah.
but you were still a people person, and coming from a large family as well. So I would say if somebody wants to enter the field, what would you say if they're not that kind of person?
This field changes you. So my motto everywhere I go, I think I even have it in my Instagram, is everyone deserves a voice.
Right.
So I think learning, the more passionate I became of this, like I found my voice, and not just my voice for me, but the voice for other people,
Right.
right? I got to be around a lot of individuals that didn't know how to communicate or didn't have the words to communicate,
Wow.
right? So now I feel like if I'm extrovert, like more extrovert, right? It's because of the fact that I'm passionate about what I want to do or what I'm doing, and I want to share that information, right? So don't be discouraged if you're that shy person. Like, mind you, my sister, Carla, like she's like the most quietest human being ever.
Right.
But like when she gets to talking about things that interest her, she can be the loudest
Right.
person in the room.
But
Sure.
also you've seen what that looks like to not be able to communicate. So
Right.
you don't take that for granted.
No,
probably,
never.
Right? So you use it when you can.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
So that's a beautiful thing. I don't think I ever thought about it, like that aspect of it, that you deal with individual children all the time who can't communicate or speak.
Yeah, no, literally, I'm just going to share real quick. I have a patient, and to this date, like literally this week it happened. So she has cerebral palsy. She's 7 years old, so she's wheelchair bound, right?
Mhm.
And so she can't even hold her head up. Like she has to have a little head piece holding her up. And so we have this thing called the Dynavox. And what it is like an eye-gazing AAC device to where she can look at pictures and it talks for her.
That's amazing.
And so let's go back 6 months, like she hated the device. And because we would try to just make her look at something, get used to looking at something.
Mhm.
So we could be playing games, we could be using words, things like that. She just hated it. So here, let's fast forward to where we are literally this past week. We got her, like, I'm going to have tears in my eyes because I had tears in my eyes at the end of the session where I was showing her things like, hey, let's request. She loves Mickey Mouse and she loves looking at the tablet. So I would use that into my session. I'd pause and I'd be like, okay, so-and-so, like, you got to ask for more. And so there she was, more Mickey, right? And it's
That's so
using
great.
with her
Yeah.
eyes. And you would see her light up once I would push play for Mickey. Okay, let it play for a couple minutes. Okay, maybe it's just like a fluke, right? Okay, what do we say when we want more? More Mickey. And I'm just like,
Oh.
wow. And so she's using yes and no questions. She's using different actions, different things like that, things that she would never think to do or that anybody would think that like a kid with cerebral palsy would
Could
do.
do.
Yeah.
She's
And she's communicating. She's talking. Yeah.
That's
That's
amazing.
impressive. That's amazing.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Would
it's
you-
cool.
Was there anything that you wish you knew before you came into this field?
I wish that I would know how much fuller my heart would be because
Sounds very rewarding.
this job is so rewarding. Like I said, like I can be having a terrible day outside of work, right? Or things happening outside of what like my office, my room, and like just my personal life. But you come in and you just have those kids that just warm your heart. And it could be anything as small as just like, hey, they touched me today, or he hugged me today, or my kid said no for the first time. And even though I got them mad or whatever it was, and they yelled at me, but they talked to me,
But you
right?
did
Right.
it.
It's the littlest things. So yeah, it's so amazing. It's really rewarding. So
And changing also their family or their parents' lives, because I think that's the hardest thing about when you're as a parent, when you have a child, when they're babies, the hardest thing is that you don't understand what they want, right?
Right.
You're guessing. So it's nice as your children grow and you start to understand, they start to be able to tell you that. And if you have a child who can't do that
yeah,
and they learn to do that, is, I imagine, for the parent just as rewarding.
it's so awesome.
to understand
There's some
their children.
parents out there that are literally just doing the most in the best way, I
Yeah.
can say.
Right.
And those are the kids that are like taking big steps, big monuments. They're making their, I don't know how to say, like they're just like climbing their Mount Everest and they're
Yeah.
reaching their goals a
They
lot
are there.
faster because they have that support system. And I have some kiddos that might maybe not have the most involved parents, but with therapy alone and like teachers and things like that, other caregivers
support
around them,
system.
they have a support system and they're still making those goals. So yeah, it's a good job.
Good. It sounds amazing. I don't know that I could do it because I have one phone call or one meeting and I'm drained. I can't imagine 9 to 7. I'd be like, yeah,
Yeah.
can we just schedule from 9 to 10 and then
Oh, I wish. I'm like, no, I just come back on my lunch. Like
Yeah.
I used to have hour lunches. Like now I'm like 30 minutes. I'm like, it's cool. It's fine.
whatever you need to do. So your career that you've done, and we're so proud of you. You're doing a great job. Not only that you are gotten through your education and you're working and taking care of yourself. I'm sure your parents love that you're independent, and that's really important to show your siblings, right? That you're living your life, but you're
Right.
doing something that you love, and that's really rare to have a profession that you're very passionate about. Has it changed your view on an education? Would you tell a student that you know that doesn't want to go to college that how that changes you?
So that's literally in my own
importance.
household,
Right.
right? So let's look at my 4 siblings. I'm the oldest. Then there's Godla right after, who's always been my shadow and follows my lead. So went to school and followed me to Kingsville, which is nothing wrong with that. Then there's my brother Christopher, who's always been like a nope. I'm like we're all night and day, right? And he's 9, we're a day. And he actually chose not to go to school.
Mhm.
And so till this day, we still tell him like, hey, what do you want to do? What do
Right.
you want to do? So my dad obviously works with Border Patrol, so he's trying to follow in my dad's footsteps, but realizing, hey, you know what? If I were to do DPS, that'd be cool. But then I guess I have to go back to school and I have to get my degree in criminal justice. And I'm like, okay, cool. Little by little, you
Figuring
have
it
an
out.
education to back up. Yeah, so figuring that out. And Carissa, she's there in Corpus with softball and stuff, playing softball, but she's actually following in my footsteps to the T. She wants to be a speech therapist because of how much she loves to work with kids with special needs and things like that. So I have that in my own household with my siblings, so I get it. And I always try to push education because it opens up so many doors, right? So talking about like athlete perspective, like I can go off track and talk about the fact that like I not just do speech therapy, but I'm a softball coach for a private organization.
Mhm.
And so we try to get girls scholarships. So I tell them, hey, your education is going to pay for everything. The more education that you can get, and nobody can ever take that away.
Right.
Nobody can ever take away how much you learn and all that stuff. So try to go find it. Go figure out what you want to do. Figure out how you can learn more about it and be the best that you can be at it, and just serve your people.
So, what advice would you give? You're giving advice to students, to kids that you meet in your own life and people in your own life
Mhm.
about going to education. What would you say to parents who are having that challenge or their kids want to go off to school and explore this field? Parents, like your parents, just be
Yeah.
as supportive as possible.
No,
Just
absolutely. Yeah. I was literally thinking about this question earlier. Like you said,
what
like,
did your mom tell you to say? No, I'm just
no, my
kidding.
mom's just like, you speak your truth. It's good. I'm just kidding. But no, in all honesty, when it comes to it, be supportive. Because, like I said, my parents didn't have the opportunity to go to college, not because they didn't want to, but because it's just they couldn't, right?
Right.
Like they didn't know they could. And so it was just told to them, no, we don't have the money. You can't go. And my parents were just like, hey, we might not be able to support you and give you all your wants, but you're going to follow your dream. If you want to be an astronaut, you're going to be an astronaut. If you want to be a speech therapist, be the speech therapist. Go wherever you need to go and we will follow and we will help you as much as we can. To this day, they're still like that. And mind you, 25 years old, I have a full-time career and I'm independent financially where I don't need my parents' help, but it's good to know that they're still there.
Yeah.
So I say to the parents that if you think you can't, or that your kid, like you feel like because of financial reasons, like there's opportunities, there's things that you wish like you don't know. Like I said, like my parents were really transparent when it came to finances. So I knew that I had the brains to go to big schools, but our pockets weren't as big as I hoped or I wanted them to be, right? So I had to just make that decision. And it's still like I still got a great education out of it. So I think that's one thing that you can.
But just they gave you a gift by being honest with you about it.
No,
And
honestly, yeah.
Mhm.
And not false like realities too, because you got to know more or less, hey, I can do it this week or whatever it might be, but I can't do this. And that kind of like adulthood now versus figuring it out all on your own, being thrown like to the wolves. Like I
Yeah.
got to learn with my parents as well, helping me, guiding me through that. So they provided those opportunities for me to learn that. And my parents always said like tough love, but honestly, they gave me everything that I could ask for when it came to my education.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you, Karina, for sharing your
Yeah,
story.
thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
you for
thank you
being
for giving us a little insight into what you're doing.
I'm inspired. I
Oh.
really, honestly, I love working with the kids.
No,
you know,
I've
'cause I work-
realized that I can't do that.
I'm sure you could. And you'll
Yeah.
find your kid
No,
that just like
that's-
changes your heart.
That's a lot of energy.
And I know where you're coming from. Every opportunity I have to help out with the students is amazing and super fun. And I always come back in a better mood.
Yeah, it warms your heart. I always tell anybody, whoever I'm in the phone with, I'm just like, oh my God, you need to know what happened today. Like, I need to tell you what my patient did today. Like, it's so amazing. It changes your perspective on everything, and it just makes you feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
Well, you're doing great work.
Thank
Keep it up.
you. Thanks.
Thank you.